Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? It is Geoff Mosher, Adam Caplan for Inside the Birds podcast. And Adam, we get closer and closer now to what becomes the next biggest game on the schedule, and
Hmm.
that's a rematch against the Washington Commanders in Landover, Maryland, at the worst stadium known to humankind, and that is FedEx Field in Landover, Maryland. People are probably tired of hearing us say that, but I can't say it enough just how awful and terrible and what a monstrosity that stadium is, especially for being one that wasn't built before 1970. I mean, this thing it's not new, but it ain't old, but it looks like it should have been built in the, I don't know, the Roman times. I mean, it's terrible. Actually, no, the Coliseum is a way better stadium than FedEx Field. I hate that place, Adam.
Yeah, I remember my first time there was '08. And then I was there for we actually talked to Clay Hart about this when he had that great block, the chip again for to block Vic and for Vic, and then Vic threw a bomb, to Djax.
Hmm.
But I just remember because I was warned about it, right? My first time there, like the sight lines are terrible, but until you're really there, you don't understand. It's just by the way, they changed the name. I can't remember what it's called now. They changed it from FedEx to something else.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I have no.
Yeah.
Sorry for the whatever the company is. I can't remember your stadium's name, but anyway, you know, I know it's in Landover. It's in the middle of nowhere. It's one of these. It's like they dropped it down and they put it in somewhere in Landover. So,
Yeah.
which is funny because I remember the only time I was at a Washington Bullets game was in the '80s. It was and that's where the Bullets were, who are now the Wizards in Landover at the old Cap Center.
Yep.
But the bottom line is this is a it is I know you said this a couple of times earlier. Um, it's kind of cool that at least the Washington Philly game is good when it means something for both teams. It's actually really cool. It Washington's trying to get in the playoffs, which it's not a lock because Seattle and Atlanta is jumbled up there. The Cardinals are still up there. Obviously they're trying to get in. They have not had a lot of luck over the years. We know it's been mostly futile under Daniel Snyder. They got Josh Harrison, his first full season as owner,
Yep.
and this game means something. And it's week 16. It's
Yeah.
kind of
I
cool.
like it. I like that Eagles Commanders mean something because, like we've said a lot of times, it just hasn't for a really really long time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's meant something for one team, but very rarely for both teams. And to put this in perspective, as we get into this episode, this means something for Washington too, because even though they're out of the NFC East, they've got their eyes on that NFC West race. And whoever doesn't win the NFC West between the Rams and the Seahawks could still get enough wins to kick Washington out if Washington doesn't win enough games. So it's really important that the Commanders, as great of a season as they've had for their standards, that sounded like sort of a backhanded
Yeah,
compliment.
no. Yeah.
As great as a season as they had for their standards, they are not guaranteed to make the playoffs. So really interesting stuff there in this podcast. And by the way, the name of the field is called Northwest Stadium
Hmm.
in Landover, Maryland. That is it used to be called FedEx Field. But in this episode, we're going to go through the injury situation because it's significant for both teams. We're going to talk also about the Eagles' edge rotation, their edge rusher rotation, because it could stand to change for this game and going forward. And we'll just give a little bit more updates on how the national public is and maybe the betting public is viewing this game before we get out of here. And of course, we'll have it all covered from a strategical standpoint, X's and O's with Greg Cosell on our pregame show Sunday morning, Inside the Birds pregame show with myself, Adam, and Greg Cosell. So, with that being said, Adam, I do also want to turn our people's attentions, our listener attentions to the great Ask an Eagle part two. We've never done this before. We did a second straight one with Super Bowl champion head coach of the quarterbacks coach, I should say, for the Eagles, John DeFilippo, 2017, who is just a real gift to ITB Patreon because he loves answering questions. He's so good at it, tells great stories, and it's just always great to have him on.
Yeah, and the stories that he gave on Thursday night. So we you and I had some questions, but the our Patreon members took it over, and it was great. We went in a lot of areas, including we went over the quarterback caravan. When the Eagles were looking for their franchise quarterback in 2017. John's meeting with Jalen Hurts, By the way, John met with him. He sat with him when he was with the Bears. They had a really interesting meeting for 15 minutes. That's all they get at the combine.
Hmm.
15 minutes per player. We went over that and a bunch of stuff. It was really fascinating. John clearly, once he decides he's done coaching, will have a media career. He's one of the best I've ever heard speak. I know he's been on Sirius. They had him on a bunch of times. It looked like I thought he was going to get a deal with him. I hope he does eventually. But he is incredible. By the way, when he was mic'd up on the USFL, holy smokes, because John
Yeah,
is emotional.
I'm
It's pretty
distilled.
pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Absolutely. So shout out to John. Big shout out to Andrew DeCecco. Did some great work on the website this week, not only covering the Eagles and what's going on at practice with the injuries, but also some really nice off the field stories on N'Kobe Dean, giving back to the community. Lane Johnson, who did not a speech, a talk in South Jersey earlier in the week about mental health awareness and shared a lot of his personal stories alongside Rob Motti, who's covered the Eagles for a long time and now is the NFL writer for the AP. So good coverage there by Andrew DeCecco. Want to thank Zach Berman, who hopped on with Derek Gunn for Gun on One and had some really good insights. And Zach's written 2 books now on the Eagles, and I definitely recommend you go pick out both of them. They're excellent reads. And last but not least, if you really want to understand football at the highest level and why the Eagles were so successful against the Steelers offensively and what they might be doing going forward, you have to watch Inside the Tape with Greg Cosell, which was posted Thursday. It's on all the platforms, YouTube, all podcast platforms, and you'll get a really good idea of concepts called empty formations and why that's important to what the Eagles did against the Steelers and might do going forward, and no huddle, how that helped, and some really good visuals also on Nolan Smith and some of the moves that he's starting to develop as a pass rusher who's young and who needs refinement and is starting to get that.
Yeah, no doubt. It was really, really good. I know Greg was super psyched when we were done because we with him, I know he does other not Eagle stuff anymore much with other people, but just he does, he does stuff in other markets with other teams and so forth. I mean, as soon as we were done taping that, he was so excited. He goes, "Man, I'm so glad we cover all this stuff," because he focuses on education for our viewers and the Patreon people get him Tuesday exclusively. They ask whenever they want. But this particular show, Greg said how Jalen processed because we had some weeks where Greg was super critical. I mean, he just goes by what the tape tells him. It's nothing personal.
Mhm.
And we don't talk to him before, but Greg sends us his notes. And I read like 8 things that Greg was like really strong in his praise about Jalen. I think we might have hit on 5 or 6 of them
Mhm.
in the show. And this is clearly the best he's processed all season. I mean, he looked, I would argue, Geoff, and I don't know if you agree with this, and I don't know if Greg off the top of his head would agree. We know Jalen was inconsistent last season. He had some good games last season, but I don't remember him getting. And by the way, that he threw a bunch of balls over the middle, which inside the numbers, which has been a problem, as you know. He likes to throw outside the numbers.
Mhm.
He was so good in this game. I can't tell you. It was, people are going to say, well, where the hell was this game? What happened before that? Can't tell you that.
Mhm.
All we could tell you is what the tape looked like. He was phenomenal in this game. I don't know what else you could ask for, to be honest with you. It's just like, as Greg said, I don't know if he said it on camera or off because I brought it up to him, but he wasn't concerned about the 3 or 4 plays where he held on to it a little bit because he said he didn't think it was a factor because
Right.
overall he got rid of the ball so quickly overall, way
Mhm.
faster than he normally does. As I'm sure you know this, he holds on to it longer than any other quarterback, but sure as hell not in this game.
Nope.
Like he was phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal.
If you want to really observe the most Greg Cosell thing ever in this show, Inside the Tape, the last one that we did, there was a random 6-yard completion to Devontae Smith that Greg isolated as one of the best plays of the game from the mental standpoint. And I'm not going to go through it here. I want people to go watch it.
Yeah.
But for those who don't think Greg gives a lot of credit, I guarantee you, common football fans don't look at that play in that game and think, man, was that some high level, you know what, right there? But Greg salivated over what was going on through in Jalen's brain to be able to make the kind of 6-yard pass to
Yeah.
Devontae Smith, which was probably the shortest pass he threw all day to Devontae Smith, but was very significant. And Greg does a great job of educating why he was able to see it, what he saw, how it happened, and why that was a really good look for Jalen Hurts. So, like I said, it's the most Greg Cosell thing ever to find a 6-yard pass and go 15 minutes into what all the permutations that went into it. But that's why it's a great show, and we really like doing it with Greg and a lot of our listeners, and who we really appreciate, feel like they get enlightened and educated when they watch the show. So I want to thank everybody who has tuned in all year to Inside the Tape. As we mentioned, Andrew DeCecco on InsideTheBirds.com. Of course, he'll be at the game on Sunday, so make sure you're on InsideTheBirds.com to get his observations and his stories. Hey, Adam, before we go on, it's been a fun week for me and my family. My kids had Christmas shows at their respective schools, and it was always fun. And just being there reminded me how fun it is to be at a show during the holidays. It's really unlike anything else. And whether that's a sporting event, a concert, or just a play, it is always a great time to get together with your family in the holiday season. And Game Time loves bringing you together by you having you use their Game Time app and using their feature called Game Time Picks, which makes getting tickets for live events even easier because Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I'm sure everybody's rearing up to go to some of these great, NBA games over the holidays or some of these college football games, which I hear there are still plenty of good tickets left at a lot of stadiums. So use the Game Time app and find out for yourself how awesome it is to go to these events and see them live and in person and check out those super deals on the Game Time app. And there are other great tiers of deals as well. And do remember, when you use the Game Time app, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. They've got event cancellation protection, job loss protection, and the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code BIRDS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code BIRDS, BIRDS, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. All right. Eagles injuries. Of course, the Eagles injury report is presented by our friends at Stretch Zone. Adam, today will probably be a big day, you assume, because I don't know if the Eagles are fudging things or using funny language, but when you see guys limited at practice on a Thursday, but they're under both the rest designation and the injury designation, it sort of makes that Friday practice really important.
Yeah, so the surprise now again, AJ Brown didn't practice on Wednesday. It was a walkthrough, it wasn't a practice. So it was a walkthrough. He didn't participate in the walkthrough, but a lot of the players did not. Like Lane Johnson didn't participate. I think almost all of their starting offensive linemen didn't work on Wednesday,
Right.
including Landon Dixon. We'll get to him in a minute. But the one ad on Thursday, and these dreaded damn, and I know people in fantasy championships this week or semifinals, I guess, depending on when you start your playoffs. So we're a little concerned about AJ Brown just because he's had a history of knee problems going back to the Titans.
Yep.
So he didn't finish practice. He didn't. Let's put it this way: he didn't take all the reps in practice. He was added after practice with a knee issue. We don't know what it is. This is a surprise to us.
Well,
So
is
we'll
this
keep
an
it.
extension of what might have happened at the end of the Steelers game when he came out? You remember what was it, the play he fumbled
Yeah,
on?
yeah. When
Yeah.
they threw it, it was surprising that they threw it then. Yeah, and I don't know, but see, here's the problem though. It's their responsibility if this needs to bother them. They have to list them on Wednesday. I don't know why they listen to him now. This is what I said. I think on Patreon, I was very worried about. It's funny. Ironically, who was I worried about them listing with an injury? Was with Barkley because he was the one who missed 31 snaps.
Right.
He doesn't. He took all his reps on Thursday. Like I give up. I don't know. We know it was a leg or a knee that bothered him, but he apparently he's fine. Okay.
Good.
Hey,
A
you know,
quick healer. Superman heals very quickly.
unbelievable. It's good. Hey, let me tell you that's awesome. But getting back to AJ, we'll see what happens today. I don't worry about these things,
Hmm.
but knowing on the reporting we did when they made that trade about what we learned from the Titans about all of AJ's problems, how they were limited in practice to get him to Sunday. Now, the Eagles don't have a lot of they don't practice very hard here. They, fairly light comparatively to from what we understand to other teams, but AJ's been, pretty healthy here. So other than the hamstring injury he had earlier this season, so we'll keep an eye on it. I'm not overly concerned, but anytime you got a pop-up injury, I'm like, uh-oh, we got to keep an eye on this. And
Of
today's the
course.
last day of practice for the week.
Yeah, and so it'll also be significant for left guard Landon Dickerson. We saw him leave the game, come back and only stay on the sideline. He was also listed as limited and under two designations of both rest and knee. So you wonder, that doesn't really help us clarify his status. Do you get a lean or a vibe? Is there anything you've heard along the way that has you concerned about his availability to play against the Commanders?
Well, I'm very optimistic in that to start the week, it was kind of like up in the air from what we understood, and then he got some work on Thursday. That's good. That's a
Yep.
positive because this is was my understanding. If he misses this game, week 16, he'd play the following week. Well, the fact that he got some work in Thursday, I feel really good about that. He's got a realistic chance now to play. Now we got to see what happens today. And as we always say with an injury, no matter what it is, you have to see how they react to Thursday practice. I remember Mike Shanahan of all people talking about this because he remember Shanahan and I think with Denver they got fined. I don't know if
Mhm.
you were covering the league then, but he got so mad at the league one time. If the guy had a hang, one week that they must have. He was so pissed off at the league because they got fined for not listing the guy on the injury report. So he listed everyone on the next week
Mm,
just to get him back.
yep.
But anyway, he actually was really good at explaining the setbacks and how he doesn't want to say guys definitely going to play based on how the guy would come into the building. Like David
Right.
Montgomery, by the way. Let's talk about something that just happened. Montgomery was not listed on their post-game injury report with the Lions. He comes in Monday morning, his knee's bothering him. He winds up being out for the season. So you got to be careful of saying the guy's definitely playing.
Right.
You feel good about it if a guy worked. Now Dickerson, by the way, did not take all the starters reps. Bond got some, not Bond. Steen got some of them. So we'll see. But I'm encouraged though that at least he got out there because again, he didn't finish the game. He didn't come back. And Dickerson's got this weird history of not missing games really, but he leaves the game, doesn't come back,
Right.
leaves for a couple snaps, comes back. It's just been the story of his career. But he's another guy we're going to keep an eye on.
Yep, absolutely. And then the other two, obviously, Sidney Brown was limited, but he's in the concussion protocol, so that's part of the protocol is to be able to get out on the field, as we say all the time.
That's
So
good though. He got
them, I
out
was
there.
just about to say that might be a good step and
Yeah.
perhaps emblematic of him being able to do the rare play a week after you suffer a concussion, but we'll see. I don't want to jump to
By
conclusions.
the way, there were I think 3 players in the last 2 weeks who played the following Sunday that had a concussion
Oh, that's pretty
on a
interesting.
Sunday. Yeah, it's no longer like it's the league gives us all this data. It's 6.5 to 7 days, and I know they want them to self-report and be honest about their symptoms. But with Sydney, look, he had a concussion. He's progressed. He should be on a third or fourth step on the protocol now because there's 5 steps. See what happens today. By the way, the knee is off the injury report. We should mention that. Remember, he missed the game through the knee. That's good.
Hmm.
Britton Covey is very close because, as we told you the last 2 weeks, he did not get cleared for contact. The great thing is he took all of his normal reps. That's a very good indication that he's going to play.
Hmm.
Hurts took all his reps Thursday. Let me see. Anyone else? Oh, Devontae Smith has this new injury. This is the pop-up coming out of the game. This is a new one back, but he took all his reps Thursday, so he's good to go.
Right.
So what do it's just to move before we move on to the Commandos? The ones we're concerned about, we'll keep the eye on is AJ Brown, obviously, and Dickerson. Oh, and Bryce Huff.
Bryce
Okay,
Huff, yeah.
and we'll get into later in the show about the rotation if he gets cleared to play this week. But it's real simple. It's not we talked about this a couple weeks ago. It's not a knee with him or an ankle, so you're not worried about his conditioning. He's wearing a club or a wrap on that surgically repaired wrist. He's got to be able to tackle, and Fangio is going to make the call in terms. He'll get cleared by the medical staff, but Vic will make the call in terms of okay, can I use this guy or not?
Hmm.
And that's going to be the thing.
Let's play the game that we play every week or every time someone's about to come off of injured reserve. If he were to come off
Hmm.
of IR and get activated onto the 53 before this game, who's gone? Charles Harris?
Oh, do they have any spots left? That's a great question. I hadn't thought of that. Well, actually, I have thought about that to our other segment, but it's more a rotational thing. I didn't quite think about Harris is not really in the rotation.
Nope, but he's on the 53.
He
So
is. Yes, you're correct. Ricks isn't going anywhere. I'm convinced. I'm just convinced that, well, as I remember, we mentioned Josh Jobe all of a sudden being a factor, like crazy amount of snaps. And by the way, even Kevon Wallace, before he got hurt, was getting snaps with
how
Seattle.
about that?
I don't know. What is their fascination with the Eagles defensive backs? I have no idea. Who knows what John Snyder's thinking? But their general manager, for the first time in his career, has full personnel control with Pete Carroll retiring or forced out the door.
Mhm.
But yeah, I would think Charles Harris because you don't need him. You definitely do not need Charles Harris if Bryce Huff gets cleared this week.
But my only question then is why did they sign Charles Harris to the 53 in the first place and not just sign him to the practice squad and call him up as they say or use elevations?
I would think they had competition because it's rare to have an edge rusher out there. Oh,
Hmm.
didn't they, wait a minute, did they claim him or did they sign him?
Oh, you know what? That's right. They claimed him. I think you're right. I think they claimed him off waiver
Of
because
Carolina.
the
Yeah.
after the trade deadline, if you're a veteran, don't you have to be waived?
Correct. Yes, correct. I think they claimed off waivers from the Panthers.
Yeah. So maybe that's why he's on the 53 because he had to be claimed. So now you might be able to release him or waive him and
Yeah,
bring
I
him
can.
back.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Now, if
Yeah.
he gets waived, do the Lions jump all over him
Oh,
because
that's a
the
great
Lions are so
question.
depleted?
Who paid him that 7 million a year judge? I hadn't even thought of that. Yeah, because yeah, they claimed he was waived in week 12. They claimed him to start week 13. He's barely played. It's funny. I think you asked Greg, did he notice him? I know you were half joking. I know you were joking because we reminisced about that draft in 17 because he had Charles Harris in his grades, just the way it over Derek Barnett. But Greg was off the hook because neither became the player that everyone thought they'd be, including the
Right,
Eagles, of course.
right.
But Harris is the one who got the extension, and then he unfortunately kind of regressed. So I just don't. To answer your question, so we can move forward. He just there's no room. Whenever Huff gets activated, there's just no point in keeping Charles Harris here. None.
I think it might just play to keep away from the Lions
I
or anybody
mean, is
else.
he really gonna have? But okay, that's fine. But he's a
Oh my God, if he signed with the Lions today, he'd probably be their second or third best pass rusher.
um. Well, they've lost three inside backers are on injured reserve.
Uh,
They lost Lee McNeil for the season, major knee injury. No, Zadarius Smith is there, who's been really playing well for them
hmm
since he was acquired via trade at the trade deadline. Al-Qadim Mohammed, who's kind of a journeyman who they brought in, who's done a nice job. It's actually more Carlton Davis. My goodness gracious, they're beat up. And then of course we mentioned David Montgomery.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess because they know him, I could see it. But I don't worry about Charles Harris, to be honest with you. I wouldn't Howie. I don't think Howie would care.
No, probably not. Probably not. But there is some strategy and gamesmanship going
Oh
on.
yeah,
And
oh yeah.
stuff.
And Howie's Mister. We've called this roster tango for 7 years, and
Right.
the Braden Mann game he was playing with Omar Khan. That's
And
another
by,
story.
yeah, and by the way, I think the reason why Charles Harris didn't play against the Steelers after playing the week before is because the Steelers only had 41 offensive snaps.
Yeah,
The ends were fresh enough. They didn't need
that's
Charles
really
Harris to come in
yeah,
there.
that's really interesting. Because Sweaty really wore down, and we know he didn't play well last season. Technique got away from him and so forth. But
Yeah,
um, Sweat only played 28 snaps because they didn't need him to play anymore.
yeah, it was a
He
gift.
is,
It was a
by the way,
gift to the Eagles D line.
yeah, yes, it is. It is gift. And I'll tell you what, Sweat has played lights out. He's really we don't talk about him enough. He has really revived his career, and he got humbled by taking that pay cut. But yet another story of great stories for this defense of just the so many things you could not figure. And
Hmm.
we outlined it. It's great. By the way, if you haven't watched the Inside the Tape show, listen to Greg and I and Geoff talk about the Nolan Smith Chronicles. Pretty interesting.
Very much so. All right, so those were the Eagles injuries, of course, presented by our friends at Stretch Zone. And listen, you can get you can get a free 30-minute stretch by signing up at stretchzone.com. And as Adam's about to tell you, it's a great way to get gift cards. Put that a little closer, buddy, so everybody can see
Yeah.
it. There you go. That's
So, so,
beautiful.
so I don't want to give out because I know, well, I don't want to give out who I'm giving these to, but having people feel better means a lot to me. And I
Hmm.
know Geoff knows this. My wife knows this. she's a kayaker and she works in retail, so she's got to stand up. And for people who have to stand up for their career, whether you're a teacher, professor, whatever the salesman, whatever you have to do. I was hooked 3 years ago when my buddy Dave Spadaro from the Eagles told me about it. I should have gone and wait. I should have listened to him at first. I would have been in 6 months before that. And I'm the king of procrastination. I work on that. I'm still, it's a challenge for me. But I finally gave in, and it was one of the best things I've ever done in my life, to be honest with you.
Hmm.
I would not be playing tennis without stretch on. I mean, I got to tell you, the stretch that I got from Austin and in Exton, he knows. He's actually from he's from out west, but he obviously lives here in Philly. Oh, by the way, we want to thank Ralph. Ralph heard he listens to Inside the Birds. I don't know Ralph's last name, but Ralph, I believe he signed up at the Exton store from listening. He's now a client of Stretch Zone. So Ralph, congratulations. Hope you're feeling good. But so what I did to move this forward here, I want three people mean a lot to me. Well, on that once I got on, because I think a couple might be watching. I want them to feel better because, as you know, man, there's nothing like feeling good coming out of Stretch Zone. I was floating on air. I was so stiff coming in Thursday, Geoff. I did not hydrate well during the week. I'll admit it. I did a really bad job of drinking water after working out for several days and not enough. And I told him, I said, dude, I'm stiff today. You're going to know it. You'll know within 30 seconds. And he goes, yeah. He goes, but strangely, my left side was better than my right. I'm right-handed. It's kind of weird. But anyway, I felt like, because I went to the nines. I said, let's go. We got to do it. We got to push.
Hmm.
I felt so good, man, when I came out, and I played really good tennis on Thursday, so I can't complain.
Oh, all right. Good stuff. All right. You know what? I'm just going to lay it. It's the holidays. I'm going to lay down the gauntlet right now. If anybody signs up for Stretch Zone because they heard this podcast and mentions Inside the Birds, all right, I'm going to give them a signed Eagles t-shirt from Jason Avant.
Nice,
I'll get
really?
him to sign it. I got to sign. I have one already. Yeah. And I
Okay,
will, it's not, I haven't worn it. It's not worn. It's brand new. I will get a
okay.
signed Eagles t-shirt by Jason Avant and give it
It's
to him.
awesome, man.
All right. Is that a good idea?
Love
It's
it. I
great.
love that. I didn't
We
know
got
that.
to
And by the
show
way,
up. Yeah.
could
We can
they?
double check these things. You can't just tell us you did it.
You know what?
Gotta do it.
We got to talk to Matt Abrams from Stretch Zone and his brother Jason. We got to give some of those hoodies away. That is actually a really nice hoodie. Yeah,
That's a great one too.
you
Yeah.
know what?
I'm wearing it right now for those who
I
come on.
like it. I like it.
I
Nice,
got
man.
complimented by a stranger on it the other day. So thank you, Matt.
There you go. All
All
right,
right,
man.
let's again go through those locations, Adam. Where can you find your stretch
All
zones?
right, very quickly. So, if you're trying to buy a Christmas gift or Hanukkah gift, 12 locations, PA, New Jersey, Haverford near Suburban Square. See my man Jared, Devin, in near Whole Foods. My man Tyler McGrogan, he is a huge Philadelphia sports fan. He talked my ear off the other day, but I love Tyler. No, he and I are good. Love him. He gave me a good stretch on my shoulder. Exton, the Whiteland Town Center, where you see me a lot. John Kincaid from 97.5 The Fanatic goes there. South Philly near Graduate Hospital. My boy Sparrow goes there. Montgomery County, Elkins Park Plaza. Upper Dublin, Drescher Promenade in Upper Dublin off 611, where I grew up, that area. Feasterville, Lower Southampton Village. New Jersey, Cherry Hill, near you, and Eastern Road. And we're going to get our man Cosell in there, Mount Laurel, Centerton Square, Wegmans. I've been in there when I used to visit Greg and Jaws at NFL Films. They used to go to that Wegmans. Franklin Lakes, Franklin Ave, Northfield, Tilton Road, Princeton, Nassau Park, Pavilion, stretchzone.com. Get your 30-minute free stretch, folks. You got to take it. You got to get it. Got to get it.
Let's go through the Commanders injury report. So a lot of what we said about Sidney Brown would also apply to a very familiar face for Eagles fans just on the other side, and that's Zach Ertz, who had a concussion and was limited at Thursday's practice, which means he was out there doing what you're supposed to do when you're in the protocol. And maybe Zach and Sidney will be able to sort of quote unquote defy the odds and get out on the field a week after they suffered a concussion.
Zach, by the way, talking to Titans dummy, the
Hmm.
Commandos, that he's been such a leader. Just they love having him. It's a great story. And by the way, he's done so well this season. I got to think they're going to want to bring, if he wants to play, by the way, I got to think they're going to bring him back. He's just been a great story. Good for him. He's had a lot of catches, but for fantasy, he's actually been pretty good.
Hmm.
Uh, so here's they've had a bad illness situation. Biotish didn't play. Tyler Biotish did not play. He felt sick Sunday morning. He wound up not playing. Michael Dieter filled in for him. Dieter started some games at Garden Center over his career. Um, so you mentioned Ertz. So he's progressing through the protocol. He got some light work in on Thursday. Sam Cosby now did not practice Wednesday and Thursday. By far their best lineman. He's tremendous.
Hmm.
He's got an illness. Also, offensively of note, John Bates is their wide tight end. He's got an illness. He didn't work Thursday.
Sheesh.
Yeah, they've got something going on, man. Something's going on there. We'll see. And then it's the craziest story that I've seen. It's crazy. They have three kickers on their 53 on IR. Austin Seibert's out. He's on IR. He's got a right hip injury. He was great for fantasy, by the way. I picked him up. Man, he was averaging like 10 points a game for like 8 weeks, and then he got a right hip injury and he was on IR.
Hmm.
Zane Gonzalez, the former Browns kicker, was signed to replace him. He's got a left foot injury. He missed last week's game. He took all the reps on Thursday, barring a setback, he'll play. And then the other kicker they had,
Greg Joseph.
Greg Joseph. He struggled, but they said that he's available if they need him. I think one or two of them had. I think one or two of them had their own paternity leave this week because their wife had the kids. So kind of weird. I think actually
Yeah.
two of them did, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway,
Man, I feel like
um,
the Commanders and Giants are just duking it out this year for the biggest kicker drama. Not as far as
oh,
missed kicks, just as far as kicker rotations and carousels.
Giants have had three, I think. Yeah. So
Yeah.
so, but there are a couple big developments, and let me explain this one because it's fascinating. So Jonathan Allen, everyone and their mother said he'd be out for the season. He's not. Why? Because he's a partial, not full pectoral tear.
Mm.
So he just started working. They're not ruling him out. They're going to see if he could, he's got to figure out how he's going to be able to wrap, but and get strength in the pectoral muscle. But he's got a chance to play this week. We'll see. Obviously, he's been out for most of the season,
Hmm.
so he's got a partial tear. And then Deron Payne should play with a back injury. He got added this week. Dante Fowler Jr. came over from with Dan Quinn from Dallas. He's got a groin injury. He didn't work on Thursday after working on Wednesday. So they got to see about him. And Jeremy Chin, by the way, the Eagles loved last year. They tried to get him at the trade deadline, but he got hurt. He's got a concussion. He actually, see, this is yet another guy. He actually worked on Wednesday. I don't care if they had a walkthrough. The fact
Hmm.
that he worked on Wednesday after he had a concussion the following week, I mean, that, again, these guys are beating the protocol. We'll see if he gets cleared.
Was he limited Wednesday or was he
Yes,
active?
but
Oh, okay.
limited, but he
Still,
actually worked
still,
some.
that's great. Wow.
Yeah. So again, you can no longer think a guy's out. Never subscribe to that theory. Oh, guy had concussion on Sunday. He can't play. BS.
Hmm.
Guys, they're beating the protocol. We've been talking about this all season. Guys are now playing the next week. It's no longer a fait accompli that the guy's going to be out.
All right, good stuff. So those are the injuries for Washington. And it does feel, if you're the Commanders, I think you're feeling a little better going into Friday than you felt coming maybe Monday or Tuesday when the guys are off and about to come back. Because those are some significant names between Payne, Allen, Chin, Ertz, Fowler, so Cosme. Really, you're really, really hoping that the illness for Cosme goes away and for Bates goes away because they're gonna really need those guys against the Eagles defense.
Yeah, and you got to isolate them. You got to make sure they're away because under the old protocols when with the COVID issue, you obviously weren't even if you had a cold, you weren't even allowed in the building.
Right.
So yeah, they don't need any issue because this happens a lot around the league. There's some teams that I'd have to look it up. There was one game several years ago where like this is well before COVID. There were like 8 to 9 players went up missing because they all got sick from the flu.
Hmm.
Be careful with that stuff.
All right. So let's talk real quick about an interesting part of this matchup. The Commanders, we just talked about the Eagles and them going no huddle a lot and doing it especially even more against the Steelers. And I believe the Commanders are one of the top no huddle teams, Adam, in the NFL. We'll really get into the weeds on that with Greg. But whenever you face an opponent that's going to do that much no huddle, you worry about A, your ability to substitute, and B, off that, keep legs fresh. And the Eagles have been working on a three-man defensive end rotation here, or edge rotation. Now we'll see what happens with Bryce Huff, but it becomes a little more difficult. We did talk about Charles Harris. If even if Bryce Huff is ready and active, he may not. It's been quite a while since he's been on the field. You may want to have five deep at the edge rusher position, Adam, because of conditioning and because this team, Washington, is going to try to move them at a pretty fast pace.
Yeah, and look, Huff got off that awful start. He started doing a little better before he had the wrist surgery, and it's only been 5 weeks. So again, he should be, if he gets clear this week, it not that he's going to play 40% of the snaps or 50 or 60 or 70, but they should be able to work him in the rotation. But the real question is, Greg talked about it. Coach Greg is really impressed with Jalen Hunt. He's getting much better as an edge as an as a force player against the run. He's tackling well. He's getting better as a pass rusher. Remember, he's relatively new as a pass rusher because of that growth spurt. He used to be a safety. Now he's an edge rusher. So and again, what Vic Fangio will make the call once he gets cleared about what he sees in practice. You can't just put the guy out there. He's got to be able to do everything well, like Bryce Huff. And it wasn't like he was lighting the world on fire this season.
Mm-hmm.
So it's fascinating. And now Vic was playing for 7 games. The first 7 games, they had a heavy 4-man rotation. Then after Huff and BG were left, he just went with 3. And he kept being asked by the media about it. Oh, I've done this before. Okay. And he's done that. And he's lived with it. But you don't want these guys to wear down.
Right.
The positive of getting Huff is now you've got flexibility. You don't have to overwork these guys.
Mm-hmm.
And again, if even if it's 15 snaps, you can give these guys a breather like that. And by the way, Sunday, game time temps 30. It's not going to get any warmer than that. The wind will be light, but it's going to be cold. Buckle up.
Yeah, I mean this. You got to feel like the sun will probably be going down. Kickoff is what, 4:30?
No, it's a
Oh,
1 o'clock
no,
game.
I'm sorry. It's a 1 o'clock game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or it
That's
didn't
right.
get flexed by a miracle. It didn't get
Yeah,
flexed.
thank God.
Yes. Yes.
Because if it was a 4:30 game, you can almost basically say the sun's going down. It's going to be really,
Yep.
really cold, but it'll still be pretty cold there. It's always cold for that last game in Washington. Should be interesting. And I agree. Yeah, the weather plays a part into it. You want to keep legs fresh. You want to avoid injuries. In some regards, I think the Eagles have been fortunate. You almost wonder, have the Eagles disproved their own theory a little bit? Because a couple of years ago, they would have told you that all those, coming out of the Super Bowl year where everybody was hurt, then they made all these changes and how they train and shorter practices and less pads and guys stayed healthy. Well, now they're back to practicing a little longer, having a little bit tougher training camp, and yet here they are healthy. I mean, it sort of goes to me to show, I think that some of that stuff is more, to borrow a Marty Morningweg phrase, cyclic
Cyclical.
than it is all these strategies that you're incorporating. I think, sometimes guys are going to get hurt in droves and sometimes they're not.
Well, okay, so if you go back to Chip Kelly, right? They're the only Chip's first year in 2013. They were the only team to not have a player on IR during the regular season. Now they had some guys go on IR before the season started, but did not put one guy on IR during the regular season, which is really unheard of. Like that doesn't happen. Now, sports science, they felt had something to do with it. But on your point about luck, next year, Foles, you go through, they had a lot of guys hurt.
Everybody.
Yeah, there was some luck involved. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
But getting sleep, there are studies will show you the more rest you get, the better they're stretched, the better condition they're in. You increase your chances. You can't completely eliminate it, the injuries, you just can't. But you give yourself a better percentage chance of recovery, for sure. Better recovery. There's no question about that.
Yeah. Hey, good sign. I mean, no matter what, all guys on the 53-man active roster, at least on Thursday, were on the practice field. Now, again, like we said, some were limited, but nonetheless, you didn't have anybody who's on the current 53 who wasn't able to practice.
Amazing.
So that's a really good feather in the cap for the Eagles.
Yep.
And shows you how fortunate they've been this year. All right, we'll get into one last thing. First, we want to pause and hear a word from our friends at Sky Motor Cars.
Sky Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people all over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schiller makes sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
And if you happen to go into Sky Motor Cars out there in Westchester, PA, be sure to tell them Adam and Geoff sent you. You will get a great deal. If you say Adam and Geoff sent you, they're going to throw their arm around you. If Brett's there, he's going to say, oh, my guys, Adam and Geoff, they're the best. Then we're going to say, well, you're the best. And go over it. You'll get the royal treatment.
Oh, he and I are overdue for pizza, man. And for my man Nick's Pizza in Wilmington, Delaware, they're closing up on Sunday. I don't know the guy personally, really, other than I said hi to him. But it's the best pizza like I've ever had. And that's no shot at Pizza Westchester, who I love. And Joey's in, where the hell is it? Joey's behind in Thorndale. Or anywhere else in the Delaware Valley, but
not better than Pepe's though, right?
Pepe's is New Haven, but you know what? It's completely different. New Haven pizza is different, but Just always try to help local businesses out. I found it on Facebook, believe it or not. And I'm a pizza freak. And I told my wife about it, and I brought it home. She's like, "Oh, holy smokes!" And what he's doing, he's closing Sunday. He's reopening North Wilmington for those of you who are from the area, because you covered Wilmington, the News Journal. So
I am very familiar with the entire state, but especially the northern part. Yes.
so I'm going later today. I'm getting it
All right.
because he's going to be closed because he's relocating. So he announced it, so I could talk about it. But hey, good luck to you, Nick. I don't know his last name, but good luck to you.
Well, and as I'm sure you'll do, I'm sure you'll put a picture on
I will
Instagram.
on the IG. Follow me. Oh yeah, hell yeah! It is
Yeah.
unbelievable. You know what? I think it's better than Pepe's. Yes,
Okay, now I gotta go. I don't remember if I've
unbelievable.
gone yet, because even though I was working there, I wasn't always in the office. But I'll have to check that out now that you say that, because that's
Ravenesi and Glen Mills also. I told my friends at I told a lot of people. I know Brent Selleck goes there. I know Selleck. I know Stout's been in there.
Mhm.
Best white pizza I've had in my life.
Okay, nice.
That's it. And people are going, oh, stop talking about pizza, talk Eagles. All right, I'm done. I'm gonna
No,
yell.
pizza's always good. Pizza and football go
I
together.
know.
Very
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you for backing me up.
All right, and of course, so do cars. So
Yes,
skymotorcars.com. If you
you got
can't
it.
get in, go to their website, check out all their great inventory, and it's buying, leasing, selling back, all of that stuff is available at your fingertips. Skymotorcars.com. All right, so here's the deal with the game. The line on the game is the Eagles are 3.5 point favorites, 45.5 total. So not the highest total I've seen. Probably for this year, the way it seems like only 4 or 5 teams really score a lot, and everybody else is in that middle range. What do you make of that? 3.5 point favorites on the road. Did you think it would be more?
It's funny because when these games come out, I look to see if I agree with the lines makers, and more often than not, they're right, of course, over me. But my personal line would have been 4.
Mm-hmm.
Eagles are clearly better. There's no question. And remember the blitz that they had in the fourth quarter. They were trailing in that game, going to the fourth quarter at the link, and then they crushed them the fourth quarter. And Daniels was hurt that game, but even if Dickerson doesn't play, I know Steen's a downgrade. It's not a big deal,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not good because Payne's good. Deron Payne's really good. And Jonathan Allen might play, but I'm not losing sleep over it. But now if AJ Brown didn't play, oops, then I'd drop it to 1.5 or 1.
Yeah.
That's how much he impact. Are you kidding me? I mean, did you see Jalen, Dalen, AJ, and Devontae? See, I choose to believe, and I told our Patreon group this like when Jalen was really struggling. I said, guys, I'm just telling. I know it doesn't look good. He's so capable of doing way better. He's better than this.
Mm-hmm.
And as Flip told us on Flippo told us on Thursday night, you never stop working with a quarterback, no matter how much, no matter what it looks like. You keep coaching it, you keep repping it, you keep showing it. And you base on what you saw in 22, he can do it. I know that this offense is different. That
Mm-hmm.
was a downfield offense. This is more get it out quickly. If it works well, I know Jalen's holding the ball too long, but overall for the season, but it works well. It's way faster
Yep.
and it's quarterback friendly. And you saw this. Jalen was, again, I'm going to ask Greg. Greg probably won't know off the top of his head, but I just thought this is like big time wow this past game.
Yeah.
So to say he can't do it, you know what you're talking about. He absolutely can do it. Will he
Yeah.
do it? I can't answer that. Only he can. I mean, Doug Nussmeier and more can answer it, but he was dealing against a great defense, and we'll see what happens on Sunday.
Absolutely. Great way to end it there. Again, Inside the Birds pregame show, Sunday morning. Myself, Adam, Greg Cosell. We will get really into the weeds of this matchup between the Eagles and the Commanders. That's going to do it for this episode of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles intel. And as always, we thank you for flying with us inside the birds. Be sure to check out our friends at PHLSportsNation.com. They're enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan is their motto. So make sure you check them out at PHLSportsNation.com and on Twitter at PHLSportsNation.